This conference will now be recorded.
Conference is now being recorded. We have some new friends today. Kevin Coker, who is announced there, and Isabella, I didn't catch her last name.
Schmidt.
Schmidt?
Mm-hmm.
Got it. And who are you folks?
You go first.
Me go first. Hi, everybody. Kevin Coker. I'm the CEO of Proxima Clinical Research. We're a CRO based out of Houston, Texas, and we work with emerging medical device and diagnostic companies.
I'm Isabella Schmidt. I work at Proxima with Kevin. I do regulatory affairs, primarily medical devices. Worked on, worked with over 100 devices, worked on regulatory for probably, 60 plus now.
Okay, and how many years has the company been around?
Just a little over 2 years now.
Okay. And how many employees?
We're hitting about 20 employees.
Oh, nice. Well done. And
Yeah,
surely these 100 devices haven't happened in the last 24 months.
Actually, they have.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of work with the accelerators. So we do a lot of mentoring with accelerators. We also have a lot of clients in quality. A lot of clients. Our hit rate is really high.
Did you say you have a lot of clients struggling with quality?
Regulatory and quality, just more regulatory than quality, but there are a few quality clients as well.
And you said Houston?
Yeah, Houston, but we have clients all over the US and I don't know, now about 10 outside of the country.
And Rick in the, let's see, in the Carol Brady Square is calling in from San Antonio in a car. So he may or may not be in San Antonio right now.
We actually had to come back to San Antonio to take care of something, and then we'll be off to College Station.
Okay. His teammate, Mrs. Rick Stockton, is driving the car, so it's an entire. With no further ado, today's featured guest is Andre the Giant of medical devices. Andre DiMino, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together.
Thank you, thank you. Please don't stop
recording straight away, or you want to set the stage first?
Yeah, we can go right into the presentation.
All right. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Bye, Isabel.
Make presenter.
Okay.
I'm going to do everything I can to knock you off script, Andre, so you know.
Okay, I'm ready.
Go ahead.
All right. So, thanks to Joe, I've been convicted to doing this week's call, and
I'm going to need everybody else.
we're waiting for everybody else to serve their sentence now. But thanks, Joe. I appreciate the opportunity. So the topic that I picked is really just something that we've found as an offshoot of our work, and that's a route to FDA compliant distribution of a non-US device. And this really came from a number of requests that we had that came into our company, that then we started doing this a number of years ago, and it's worked out for a number of companies that we've worked with. First off, to tell you why we do this or how we do this, a little background about the company. Let's see. So again, I'm Andre DiMino. I'm president of ADM Tronics. We're a small public company. We're traded on the over-the-counter QB. We're a full reporting company. We're based in Northvale, New Jersey, which is in Bergen County. If you know anything about New Jersey, it's about 15 minutes from the George Washington Bridge. So we're far enough from New York, but convenient enough to get there when we have to. And last year, we celebrated our 50th year. My father started the company in November of 1969. We are electronic medical device design, development, regulatory, and manufacturing, and for all three classes of medical devices. So we operate an FDA registered contract and OEM facility. We're registered in both respects because we have our own products as well as products we do as devices we do for our clients. We have ISO 13485. We pride ourselves in having a complete multidisciplinary team of engineering specialists that are in-house. They're not outsourced. So we keep everything internally, and that's of course for speed of work, but also for protection of intellectual property and so forth. And we provide design development and FDA manufacturing services, as well as international services, plus the whole alphabet soup of certifications that we have.
Andre, one administrative note, please. On the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, to the right of notes and few icons over is the screen. No, right, no, to the left just a touch. Click on that, please. That'll make it clearer for us.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Did that work?
Yeah, it did. I didn't expect a whole bunch of flashing stuff, but have at it.
Okay. So, we have as opposed to maybe some contract and design companies, we do have very strong regulatory infrastructure for all aspects, working for the complete basis of regulatory, including filings and filing support and everything related to it. And we've had over 4 decades of FDA interactions. I always pride myself in saying that, we were producing medical devices before there were medical device laws in the United States, before the 76 amendments. And we have the international stuff. Are you seeing these moving in, Joe?
We are.
Okay. So on an internal capabilities basis, we're focused mainly on electronics, mechanical machining, CNC, and rapid 3D prototyping, being both additive and subtractive, and certified test equipment. Here's just a bunch of some of our designs. And I know this sounds like a commercial, but it leads into why we're able to do what I'm going to be talking about today.
How many square feet is your facility in New Jersey?
18,000.
Oh, okay. And you have other footprints, or is that your only place in?
This is everything right here. This is our home.
Okay.
Okay, so now on to the topic of today is, a route to FDA compliant distribution of a non-US device. First of all, why even talk about this? And the reason is that there's some companies out there that just don't have any previous FDA activity. And, especially international companies that have come to us, there's just almost a reluctance to start up if they've never had that involvement before. They may not have any kind of US physical presence, so therefore they don't really have a doorstep here into the United States. They may not have the resources for the compliance of bringing their device into US distribution. And they don't want to dedicate the time for self-compliance, so they're just not interested. And that's the last point, is the lack of desire to really just start the whole process up. Obviously with the changes in MDR and everything related to the international, it's just another level that a non-US company has not experienced before.
If there's a lack of desire, how do they find themselves talking to you? I mean, you're not going shopping for them and saying, hey, you've got a device in Europe. Why don't you come to America? I can help you.
Yeah, no, actually, most of it has come through referrals where people have said, hey, there's this company, they got a great product, but they're concerned about going into the US. You should talk to them. And candidly, we don't advertise. It's all been through referrals and networks of companies that are looking to come in here. And that's really what the next slide is all about. Of course, this is really related to a non-US medical device company, but actually based on these referrals, we've also had, we also had US medical device companies that maybe have other priorities, or maybe a startup, an entrepreneur or an inventor, or just some company that wants to diversify into medical devices. And so over the years, this has kind of covered everybody that we've done this with. And by the way, although I'm saying how we've done it, really anybody that has this infrastructure can do the same thing, as I explained the way we put this together now as a package. So how do we do it? First off, forgetting the simplified route, if somebody wants a full contract service, they come to us and we work on somebody's idea literally from the conceptual stage right through to FDA manufacturing in our facility. So that will be a full contract service. But really what we're talking about today is something that we've actually given a name to, and we call it the last touch. And we've seen a number of opportunities, and we've had now a number of clients that have gone through this last touch. And again, although this is what we call it, anybody that has this infrastructure can do it. And so what is what we call the last touch? If you're not doing the entire part of it, let's assume you've got a medical device company that's in another country and they've actually got a device on the market in that country. The question is whether or not you can segment a portion of that production to then be done here in the US in our facility. Now, of course, this has to be meaningful. You can't just slap labels on a package or take a device that's completely done. There has to be some meaningful portion of the production, because we're not trying to fool anybody here. This is something where we actually have to do some part of that production. It could be a last step of the production. It could be some assembly and so forth. But the important thing is that the final QC release has to be done here on a regulatory basis based on the quality of that product. Then, of course, making sure that the documentation matches up. Although, of course, a product that's marketed overseas will have the technical file and all the stuff they need overseas, but there are certain nuances related to a DHF and a DMR for, FDA inspections or what's necessary for US distribution. And so we in essence assist with that or work with their regulatory people to make sure it lines up for what's needed for FDA inspection. Then if they have absolutely no US operational QMS, in essence, they adopt our QMS and they, in essence, work under all of our SOPs with respect to our QMS. And then, of course, we assist with the 510K submission, either submitting it completely or working with their consultants and so forth that will work on the regulatory submissions for what's required for US 510K submission. You would have to list then as the contract manufacturer for this device, in dependency of the 510K. And as everyone probably knows, with respect to a 510K, someone who owns the 510K has to be registered with the FDA. So although they can keep a hands-off approach for the operational side, once the 510K is granted, they would have to register with the FDA as a specification developer. I mean, that's the minimum amount they'd have to do. And then the contract manufacturer would be whoever would be doing this kind of last touch approach. So the company would list as a specification developer for owning that 510K, but then operationally, all of the activities would be under the contract manufacturer or the company that's doing the last touch. Now you have to involve that also involves, of course, everything related to that, which then would be pursuant to inspection by the FDA, which would be the production, distribution, the DHR, tracking, tracing, and so forth. So there's a responsibility that comes under that stays with the contract manufacturer, but relieves the specification developer for having to do that. And anything related to post-market, if they're not set up for the complaint and MDR reporting and so forth, again, that's something that can be offloaded for this last touch approach. So in essence, it's really a hands-off approach for a company to be involved with US distribution by segmenting that portion of the development to a company that would have the infrastructure to be able to do it. Now you have to have a robust infrastructure. And again, a little bit of a commercial, since we've done this so many times, we segmented the portions that have to be adopted by the specification developer registration, but that avoids them having to go through all the inspections and so forth. And then the post-market, again, we provide the post-market compliance with respect to complaints. If there's any MDRs, God forbid, that have to be filed, we will handle that. So it's a route that minimizes the overall complexity or involvement or day-to-day work that's required to get a qualified device onto the US market. So I mean, briefly, that's the end of the formal presentation. Just to give you some history about this, one of the things that we've seen by doing this is that, sometimes the forest and the trees, we've actually been able to secure over 26 additional patents for clients, looking at different ways to approach things and different claims and so forth. So, as a value add to this, not only is it the mechanical application of the QMS and all of the requirements, but there's also value add because we've got some, a bright group of millennial engineers here that got good engineering background. So we do provide a value add as part of this process. So in essence, that's really the route that I wanted to talk about. I know that a lot of people on the phone may be consultants and provide different portions of this, but as a medical device manufacturer with over 4 decades here, we've been able to segment this portion of it and provide it to people as an added service.
Now 5 decades. You've got to update your script.
You're right. We're into the new year.
I don't think you need this screen, and
no, not at all.
See one another if I take that back. And
You can take it back.
so let's see, how do I do that? I think I make myself a presenter and then I stop being a presenter. So I think there's no screen being shared right now. Can we confirm?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I'll start, and you're right. We have a lot of consultants with skills that overlap with yours. You have 36 folks there. So do you ever find yourself where you need outside help to bring in?
Well, you just actually, you hit upon it, Frank. I don't, just because the consultants out there and they're overlapping, that's not mutually exclusive. There's many times where we have to bring in certain specialists or we have to offload certain things that have to be done. And we very regularly work with consultants that augment my internal engineering team. You know, so we may have one person that's specialist in electronics or somebody specialist in software and so forth, but then we have to augment it with additional support from the outside. But it is, we do manage it internally, but work with consultants on the outside.
I'll just let you know that here in the chat box, which I just sent out to everyone on the call, I gave you a link. You all have access to this, but I suspect I need to do a better job of reminding you about it. This is a link to a Google Sheet of everyone on the platform with links to your LinkedIn, to your Slack, to your email, your phones when you offer them, and everything. You can sort by functional expertise and the like to do even a better job of facilitating. Isn't this funny? The one woman on the call doesn't have her camera showing. So if you want to be part of the white guy network, here we are. We're ready to help. Michelle, I don't know where you are. There she is. Look, everybody, a woman, a white woman, but a woman.
I bring some diversity, just not all of it.
Yes. Kevin, I think you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Andre, is there any particular therapeutic sweet spot, or is it just across all therapeutics and all types of devices?
Well, we're really specialists in electrotherapies, you know, such things as PEMF, RF therapies. That's really a specialty, but we've done all aspects. We've done LLT, you know, low laser therapy. We've done LED therapies. We've done vibratory therapies. You know, we've really, I would say we're probably 90% therapeutic and maybe 10% diagnostic.
Great. Yeah, and I know all this is stored, and Joe will remind me how to get to all of these things, but would love a copy of the slide deck that we could keep in our records here at Proxima.
And also, Kevin, it just so happens that the one area that we absolutely don't have any background in is the CRO side, and we do work with a number of CROs. So I was going to ask for your contact information as well.
Sounds
Ladies
good.
and gentlemen, it's working.
I have a question for Andre.
Sure.
Andre, in the scope of creating value for these companies, how much margin are they giving up in order to participate or work with you?
Well, it really becomes, it's not one size fits all. It depends on what their aspects and what they need
Let's
are.
say full scope. If you were doing all the things that you talked about and their normal margin, you know, was the full amount, how much do you think these steps bite into their margin?
It depends on the complexity, but I'm saying you're probably talking about a 10 to 15%.
Okay.
And the question then becomes about the ongoing basis. And also this is an important point. We've had a number of our clients that were non-US that we did this for, and then after about a year or so, they started to adopt their own infrastructure. And in essence, you know, we help them. You know, it's not like we lock them in and we want them to go forward, and they then eventually ease into it as opposed to having to do it. So we've had probably a dozen or so companies that have now gone off on their own, and we just come back to them whenever they have a specific need.
Larry?
Thank you.
A question.
Yeah, Larry.
You've obviously been doing this quite a while, and I'm sure you've got a well-validated system in there. But when I look at it, I'm thinking, wow, there's some real FDA challenges there, because you're not a normal CMO. And the question is, have you had interactions with FDA? Have they inspected you? Have they looked at your post-marketing system and have they bought off on it, or have you fought any battles with them?
Actually, Larry, it's a very good point. I'm very proud of the fact that we've had, multiple, dozens of inspections from the New Jersey regional office as well as from the federal office. And, we've had some very minor 483s regarding documentation and so forth, and maybe a couple of signatures that were missed here or there. But I am proud of the fact of kind of our regulatory standpoint, not only here with the FDA inspection, but also with our authorized bodies for CE and ISO 13485. So we take pride in that. I myself, I'm an engineer, but I've been most heavily involved on the regulatory aspects related to manufacturing. So it's been a very good relationship. And yes, the FDA inspectors have been here. We've had inspections that have lasted 2 weeks. We've had inspections that lasted a day. So
Was there one that lasted 2 weeks for calls?
we had a client at the time that had a problem with their literature. Their labeling didn't match up, and we didn't know that. And so therefore we had to go back and in essence, we had to work with them to make sure that that portions of their labeling had to be changed to be compliant. They took certain liberties because in the European marketplace, their CE mark had a number of indications that did not match up with the 510K, and they just did not get the concept that the indications in the US couldn't be everything that was listed on their CE license. And so we had to go through and have them redo it, and it was a documentation question. We did not have those documents here, so we were dinged for not having the proper documentation for that. So that was kind of one-off, and it took us a couple of weeks to get that all clarified.
You shared this on an earlier call. I'm still fascinated by it, that as soon as the medical device tax was put away for good, you had an unprecedented surge in business.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, well, it was when they started talking about it being included in the omnibus, we started getting calls back from a number of clients. And then I don't know if you saw the press release, but we announced we did sign one of those clients. It's a major contract to develop an ophthalmological device for imaging of a retina, 200-degree imaging of a retina. It's called the Retinal-Genics. And we signed that contract a week after that was done. And that and others we attribute to the fact of there's not that concern about that sword of Damocles hanging over our industry.
So let me ask you this, on one of your first slides, you said something about on your last stop or whatever you called it. Last touch. So one of the first things was that there had to be some portion that was manufactured or touched by you. What was it sounded like there was some sort of regulatory reason behind that.
Candidly, I established that personally. Okay. Because we have had people that came to us and they said, hey, why don't you just put this in the box and then you could say you're the manufacturer. I can't do that. That would not be a valid statement. So either our company is a manufacturer or not. And that's why there has to be some meaningful portion of it. And, it could relate to assembly of components to be put together that are not operable before we get them, but are operable after we work on them. And so based on that, there is a meaningful assembly or testing that occurs. So that's just an internal thing, and only because of the one that I sign all the documents, and I'm not going to expose myself to any kind of problem.
Yeah. So does the way this works on the labeling that you appear next to basically the little house per se as the manufacturer, and the client appears as kind of the distributor, if you would, their name is big across the top and yours is the little one?
100%, Michelle. If you look at the labels, you see that on a number of products, probably we're probably up to about 9 products that are in distribution right now that are that way, with the brand name or the brand company or the 510K owner very prominent, and then us by the little house.
Yeah.
Andre, what are the main mistakes that companies make when they don't work with somebody who has your navigation skills?
Well, I mean, obviously, the documentation and the experience with what needs to be done for the FDA. The CE situation and technical file and so forth is great, and MDR is making it more strict, but it's not FDA. And there is a certain way that things have to be done for FDA. And we've had companies that were in Europe or in other countries that are just resistant to doing it the way you have to do. And sometimes it's a learning curve that we have to get through. And I know probably Kevin and others may have worked with international companies, and there is a different mindset. So, and that even goes for here, for an entrepreneur. We've had medical doctors, for example, that invented something, had a prototype made, and now they want to get it on the market, and they just don't get the fact that you can't just, how come you just don't make it and put it on the market? And it's just a matter of getting that mindset of what regulatory is all about, what quality is, and why the first product you manufactured has to match the last product you manufactured. So it's just general. I know that's a general comment, Jonathan, but that's really just the mindset that we're dealing with.
And as a follow-up, companies that do go through the process and get down into the commercial weeds, what kind of problems do you see once they're actually commercially active?
So we have to have regular discussions with them about their claims, their documentation, and so forth, that it matches up with the indications for use that's cleared by the FDA. I guess that's probably the biggest thing. Some of these companies are very expert sales and marketing companies, and sometimes sales and marketing doesn't match up with regulatory labeling. And so, we have to talk to them about what's said at, for example, what's said at a trade show, what special flyers they put out, what sales brochures. So I think that's probably the most of the thing. And again, just like we're having this call, I have regular calls with our customers where they'll put a couple of salespeople on the phone, and we'll kind of have I would say we have kind of a tutorial on what should be done and what shouldn't be done, and the problems they could have for the company if they don't toe those lines.
So outside of the discipline of the sales team, the marketing team, what about when the product's in the market and there's a lot of off-label activity?
Well, obviously the FDA does not regulate the practice of medicine. So if it's something that a doctor or a user is doing, that's one thing. But if the company's promoting the off-label, obviously that's a no-no. And we're very strict with them. If they value their 510K and they value the ability to distribute in the U.S., they're going to have to be careful of that, or we may not want to continue doing business with them.
Total side.
Have you ever fired a customer?
Let me interject real quick.
Sure.
Just an administrative note. Apparently, I'm having my septic tank drained today. I don't know if that's a loud thing, so I may be muted for the rest of the thing, and Elliot is very excited about this. But I do want to ask about cost of doing manufacturing in New Jersey versus overseas, which just shouts at me as being like a disadvantage for you. So at some point, if you could address that, I'm going on mute.
Sure. Now, of course, we don't do certain things here that we can do on a non-U.S. support, non-U.S. manufacturer for pricing purposes. But there is a certain amount that has to be done here, and it may be related to assembly and so forth. But things like stuffing circuit boards or making circuit boards, or perhaps injection molding of components, they may be offloaded to other locations and then brought in here for final assembly testing and so forth.
Do you have manufacturing partners that should they bring their to you and not know other people in the United States that are injection molders, etc.? Do you have partners already in those spaces?
Well, we do, but we are also open. For example, there might be an injection molder that the client has already been using, that we would just have to certify them that as an authorized vendor to us, of course, doing the documentation that we've certified their operations so that they meet up with our QMS. But we're open to either theirs or others as the needs progress. We have certain ones that we work with, but we're not locked into anything specific.
Completely side story, unrelated to your presentation, but related to the comment about the FDA doesn't regulate the practice of medicine. I oddly have ended up in many of those conversations. And I had a client that had had a prescription, like kind of bowl and bite mouthpiece for snoring. And they had a novel prescription methodology, which was commonly used to dispense these devices, where you could order online, and there was an algorithm that a dentist had created for the prescription of this device. So you answer the questions and you get a score, and if you score above or below this, you can have one. If you don't, you need to go see a dentist because you have a condition. The FDA just did not like that and inspected them every year for 5 years without telling them that it was the prescription methodology all along.
That's not fair.
And it's not legal. I mean, the prescription methodology is so far outside of what the FDA can regulate.
Yep.
But ultimately, because of this, the FDA opened up that product code to be OTC if you did a 510K. So they did a 510K. The FDA came back again, did not know that they had done the 510K because those divisions don't talk. And the guy was like, oh yeah, so since, you know, you guys have been here, we got a 510K clearance for OTC. And she's like, oh, well then I don't need to be here. I've been here, I'm here for the prescription methodology. 5 years. They are two guys in an office in California that has a contract manufacturer and a fulfillment center. Product never moves through there. They bought a 510K that was cleared in 98 and have made no changes besides this one that they just got the OTC. There's literally nothing to look at. Every time the FDA comes, everything's exactly the same, except for they did a management review to say everything's exactly the same.
Sorry to hear that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right, Larry?
Larry was on the, yeah, Larry was in that division. Unmute yourself, Larry, enlighten us.
The thing is as you can imagine, there's all kinds of different people in FDA and their approaches are sometimes different. And that I don't like hearing that story that Michelle told because it's obviously wasn't aimed at protecting the public. It was some other thing. But bottom line is that FDA is always watching and you just got to be ready for them.
I think we should all pile on Larry and say, hey, what the hell, Larry?
Yeah, Larry.
Actually, I was the director in California sending my people out there and says, hey, I don't like this prescription thing. Go out there again and see what they're doing. Just kidding.
I know where to have my client to send the hate mail now.
And I think Jonathan asked the question before if we ever fired a client. Jonathan, yes, yeah. Unfortunately, we have one experience like that, and was actually just as background. I've appeared in person at 19 panels at the FDA on behalf of clients to make presentations and so forth. And this one client, we had made a presentation at the meeting at the FDA, and of course, you know, there's minutes of these meetings and so forth. And then that company came back and just didn't do anything of what we discussed at that meeting. So I felt that our reputation was on the line, and so we delisted them as a product that we would be involved with.
Ouch.
Yep.
You know, that relates a little bit to my industry experience. I spent 18 years in regulatory and clinical quality programs in the industry. And I used to tell regulatory people, if you haven't been fired at least one time in your life, you've had to give in to something illegal. You experience it out there, and sometimes you did the right thing. In other words, you were making money off these people, but you saw that exposure and you said, I can't take it. And I commend you for that because not everybody would do that.
Well, Larry, what I saw was the possibility.
Larry.
Sorry, Joe.
I've been offended many times, not for the reason you state, but still.
Well, Larry, what I saw was the possibility of losing all of my other business because of the one. So that, you know, I was protecting the rest of the business. Yes, it hurts to lose some money, but I didn't want to lose everything.
Well, your regulatory exposure really is widespread in the sense of all the different companies you work with. If you have a major problem, they all have a business problem. So I'm sure they select you carefully and monitor you, and I'm sure you're doing a great job.
Thanks. Yeah, we're proud of that. And also, you know, Joe asked me this question once before, and you know, to me, this is in my blood, and you know, one of the reasons why I got involved with the MDG Premium is because, you know, I'm here in northern New Jersey, not exactly the hub of medical device innovation, but I don't know if anybody knows this, but Northville was really the hub of the generic drug industry. It started right on my street here. We're on Pegasus Avenue, and we had Bar Labs, Zenith Labs. They all started right here. And that was, decades ago, but that's what Northville was known for. Now we're working to make it known for medical device development.
There's a premium group member who told me yesterday that his production may be delayed because some of his parts are made in, wait for it, Wuhan, China.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got one vendor now that's given us about a 3-week additional timing because of the problems there.
I just had a.
Sorry, who spoke?
I've got a client where our device is being made in China, not in Wuhan, but their guys are not coming back until the end of February from Chinese New Year.
Yep, that's right. We had the same thing, Rick. Same problem.
Yeah, it's messing with our schedule. Apparently they're going door to door and the whole 9 yards. In other words, their reaction by many times outstrips the declared number of infected people. So we think it's probably much larger than we're hearing.
Even the news, though, I mean, every single day they're reporting another 100 deaths and like another 5,000 infected. I mean, I'm scared. What's really interesting about this is a number of people have left comments either on my posts or other that say, this brings us back to a heated debate we had in the group some months back about forced vaccinations. In Seattle, I think you can't go to school now unless you're vaccinated. I applaud it. But the typical strain of influenza has a death rate of 0.2, and this has a death rate of 2.0.
Wow.
And that's why it's as alarming as it is. You have a 2 in 100 chance of death? No thanks. We have it here in my state. I'll try not to bring the infection with me to London, folks. Where I will see both Ed and Michelle next week. Well, a week from Monday. Oh, by the way, I won't be hosting a call for the next 2 weeks due to travel. Beth? Nope. I was going to ask when's our flight home, but next week, Rob Packard will be your host and featured guest talking about something regulatory. I don't know. He might be your host the following week as well, and anyone who wants to talk. And while I'm on the topic and Elliot and the septic tank people are outside, I would love to have a rolling 13-week calendar of our featured guests. So any of you on the line now that hasn't starred in his or her own week, please let me know when you'd like to go. You're each have the privilege of sharing something that you know that we don't, and help us all be smarter as a result. So write me independently and tell your friends. Oh, and speaking of tell your friends, again, I'm not sure how actively you're all reading the announcements that I put there because I don't get any kind of notification, but you're all entitled to bring a guest to these calls. They don't have to be premium members. I'd ask that they don't abuse it, but no one has so far. Rick had Rigoberto join us 1 week, and that type of thing, and they're welcome. So if it helps you share your value prop with your clients or your prospects or just a friend who's interested or wants to break in, that's what this whole thing's about, as you know. So,
well, another way to get the word out is that we've got. I had 2 other friends whose schedules precluded, but they wanted me to send them the link that's available out on the internet just so they could go in and see, just go in and review it. So that's another way to get people interested in this.
So we have some 75. Hi again. Now there's 2 women on.
Some diversity.
Yeah.
We're still only halfway there with the diversity, though.
Halfway. That's not according to my math, but I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so we have all of these saved and up on the MDG Premium YouTube channel, which is about 25 subscribers away from being able to rebrand as that vanity. You need to have 100 subscribers before you get the special URL. So tell your friends. Andre, before you said how, sure, go ahead and have your parts made in Wuhan or wherever, and then ship them in and we'll put them together. But why? Why don't we have them put them together over there? Isn't that less expensive for me?
Well, it depends on what level of complexity we're talking about. Remember this, doing this, we can't just be an artificial manufacturer. If we're going to be a contract manufacturer, we have to be a contract manufacturer. So there's got to be some meaningful aspect of it that the device is not operable until we get it. And therefore, that's why, we've got to determine what that segment of production would have to be.
I can think of two problems that they avoid by using you. The first is if they're going to make a finished product outside the United States and send it into the US, it has to be declared as a medical device at the port of entry, and FDA goes on the review, looks for the submissions, the whole thing. FDA doesn't regulate components, so if these components are coming in. The other is if they're making a device overseas and shipping it here complete, they've got to be registered with FDA. They have to have a fully compliant system with the quality system regulation, and that is no minor. So if I'm a foreign company, I look at that, wow, I don't have to set up an FDA compliant system, and I don't have to go through any kind of import review and declare these things. I think I'm going to work with Andre.
Larry, you nailed it. That's exactly the point. And we've had some customers that looked into the aspects of converting their operation to be FDA compliant, and they just threw their hands up, and that's when they were referred to us.
And I'll put in a plug-in back next week. We've got we mentioned about 2 or 3 TEDx presentations or whatever, where we have a workshop morning and my field is
Rick, your sound is awful.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Or something.
Your sound is awful, and it looks a little like we're playing carpool karaoke.
No. Okay, so this thing about
Not great, Rick. Do you know American Sign Language?
let me see. Speaker will do a better job.
Even if he did, do you?
No, but I could have put the video into some kind of search engine and had it translated probably.
It is weird on a telephone. Is this sound any better?
Perfect.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, we'll do this. But from listening through and listening very hard to his presentations over the years, that actually, I'm a designer, so that really has nothing to do with regulatory unless you're in medical devices. And so I've been able to guide my customers in certain situations, actually changing the way we designed something to take advantage of regulatory paths that already exist or avoid large areas of regulatory scrutiny that would be necessary if we did one thing and not another. So, Robert's information has been just really data dense and very useful. And it's actually, and the stuff I've learned from him and other regulatory people has actually helped me guide my clients through better design processes. So I'm definitely going to be listening to Robert.
I usually play the role of person to speak when there's a silence, but now my every other week house cleaner is here as well. So we're getting our house cleaned, our dog barked, and our tank septiced. I'm going to be on mute for the rest of the call. And anyone want to add anything? Anyone in a non-Andre related field want to share something that happened this week that's interesting or can teach us a thing or two? You're not smart, but it make a lot of noise.
We go back on.
Figure out how. There. Anyone? Bueller.
Have we met Kevin's friend before?
We did, but you weren't here, but she'll reintroduce herself.
Hi, I'm Isabella Schmidt. I work at Proxima with Kevin. I do regulatory affairs and quality. I think I spoke to you once before on LinkedIn, Michelle, about the RAPS executive management program or something.
Oh, yeah, about whether it was worth investing or not.
Yeah.
And what did you say? Was it worth investing?
Yeah. When I negotiated into my contract with the people who had hired me at that time that they were going to pay for it, it was $7,000 for a week. Yeah. And I mean, it was pretty cool, but you know, as far as getting real tangible practical skills that you use every day, nobody has hired me since because I had it. And I think now that there's way more valuable certifications that you can probably get that are more marketable. It's like, and I was the only person there that was from a fairly small or even mid-size. I mean, Abbott made up like over 50% of the class, and all the other attendees were from basically really big device pharma companies. So I think it's something for corporate ladder climbers.
Are you still active with RAPS?
I maintain my certification that I have just because it's such a pain in the ass to get it back should I want it.
Yeah.
But other than participating in some forum discussions, I'm not particularly active. And I've never been to the Convergence either because first off, it's so expensive. And and it's full of regulatory and quality people like myself, so it's really not good business in terms of getting clients. So I tend to invest my money in in conferences where people need me, or there's not a huge representation of regulatory and quality, or you at least get you have an engineer, a CEO, a designer, you know, you at least get a diverse portfolio of people you can talk to, not just people who are in your niche.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah, we sort of felt the same way. Isabella will probably go at some point for professional development. I used to be involved with RAPS quite a while back, and then my career sort of went a different way, and I haven't been involved, so it's good to get that feedback.
Right. The one conference I do try to go to every year is MedCon, put on by Xavier University in Cincinnati. And I go to that one because there is a field office there, and the FDA shows up in droves to speak at this conference. And they have open mic at every single presentation, and you can actually interface with the FDA and ask questions. And Jeff Shuren gives a video presentation, and you can ask him questions. And I really like the interaction there. And for small companies, it's very affordable.
Yeah, thanks.
They have tiered pricing specifically to draw in a mix of people from small to large companies.
Oh, very good. What was that again? What was
MedCon.
it? MedCon? Okay.
So that's the one I do. But this year I was actually asked to be on a panel at a med device specific MD&M in Boston that same week. So I'm not going this year.
Little Miss Popular.
I'm popular. This is gonna be the year of Michelle.
Rick, when you land wherever Sharon is taking you, Antonio just posted a link to all of your pages designed, and you're going to be thrilled. That's what I have to say about that. You're on mute, but just know it's okay. A thumbs up from Sharon.
Verbal thumbs up.
Yeah, no, you're going to be really happy. We're designing something for him. Last week in the announcements tab, I mentioned that AdvaMed was taking applications to speak there. I know Michelle seized. You got that in on time. I didn't. But as a conference producer, I'm pretty sure that you could probably still sneak in an application if you want an audience there. So it's on my list of things to do. I may actually get one in, but if any of you missed that and want a chance to present at AdvaMed, there's an opportunity for you to do that. Anyone else?
Quick question for Andre. Do you spend a lot of time with foreign chamber of commerces like Swiss or Norwegian, or have you found that those entities or those bodies help create opportunities for your business?
Well, we belong to the International Trade Council. That's one group that we belong to, and we get a lot of contacts through that. As far as the chambers of commerce, I would say not really. I don't know if you heard before, but most of our international has been through referrals and networking, and so we really haven't gone out and prospected in that respect. But we did join the International Trade Council because it does give us kind of a background of information and things that we can use for international purposes.
Okay, great. Well, I'm meeting with the Swiss American Chamber of Commerce today, so I just wanted to keep that in mind.
Sure. And by the way, if anybody's ever in the New York metro area, we're only 15 miles from the George Washington Bridge. We're up in northern New Jersey. Feel free to stop by and see our laboratories, our research facility. Be happy to show everybody around.
15 miles in New Jersey, New York, that's like what, 2 hours?
No, actually, Palisades Parkway, it's a straight run. You'll be here in 15 minutes from the bridge.
I'm just going to butt in and say bye-bye. I've got a 9 o'clock call that I got to jump off for. But hey, if anyone's going to be at MDM in Anaheim next week, ping me on Slack and let's meet up.
And who you're going to see Alan Cooper there, and you're going to visit Mark Fine's booth. And what other shows are coming up besides mine a week from Monday that people are going to? Anything?
I'm hosting that half-day workshop in north of Amsterdam, if anybody wants to pop in there.
When is that?
It's the 20th.
Thursday, a week from Thursday. Okay, anyone else?
I think there's a Med Device Summit, LSI is hosting in Dana Point.
Are you going to that? The Emerging MedTech Summit?
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Oh,
we'll be there.
I'm working with their promoter, and I put out a few announcements about it, so I'm happy to know someone's going. Please tell me how it goes.
Yeah, this is our first time going to it, and it's conflicted with a lot of other conferences, so we're splitting the team up, doing some other things too.
Okay. We'll come back with reports. I'd be grateful if anytime anyone goes to a show, if they could, maybe leave a note in, meet in person, and tell us, would you ever go back? Was it worth the money? Was it, let us all make each other smarter and spend our money more wisely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Jeff, thanks.
I'm going to be at some
we're getting a few waves.
specific.
I will see Michelle and Ed a week from Monday in person. And well, the rest of you, I guess you're going to have to show up in San Diego. Bye for now. Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
See you there.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe.